Welcome to this Gamer Muscle Videos one-off special where we're going to be talking about the launch price of the Oculus Rift. Now, for those of you that weren't paying attention, the retail price of the consumer version of Oculus Rift is $599 plus postage. If you're in the United Kingdom, that works out at £500 plus £30 postage, and some people are having to pay $1,000+. I think the Canadians are getting slaughtered by the conversion rates and taxes and what have you. But the price of the Rift really has caught a lot of people off guard, and there's on the Oculus Rift subreddit, there's been a lot of reaction, a lot of heads exploding. In fact, mortuaries are now full of VR enthusiasts that were sure that the Oculus Rift was going to retail at sub $500 or sub $400 in most cases. They've all just blown up with confusion, and perhaps rightly so. But in the course of this video, we're going to talk about the price of the Rift, how it's ended up becoming the price it is, why that's good, why that's bad, and what this might mean for the future of VR. But starting with the confusion over the price and why this has happened. Now, for those of you that weren't following Oculus and the reboot of VR since sort of 2011, 2012, you might not be aware of this, but when Oculus first started, the whole emphasis and the thing that the Oculus as a company really pushed was this notion of affordable consumer VR. And you know, the DK1, even though it was a developer kit, delivered that, and the DK2, even though it's a developer kit, really delivered that, in that they were both sub $350 products, and they got you to experience VR very cheaply and very effectively. Oculus as well, up until very recently, always pushed this idea of consumer VR, with Palmer even saying in an interview, granted in 2013, that if a VR headset costs $600, regardless of how good it was, people aren't going to be able to afford it, so people won't get it, even if it's good. So that seems very strange and a very big shift to go from that to the now consumer launch of the Oculus Rift, priced at $599 or £530 including shipping. Now, what happened to cause this? It seemed to change at the point where they got bought by Facebook, and I think the priorities of the company really shifted at that point, where they didn't have to get as immediate return. The DK2 didn't have to be sold as the consumer device and was a DK2, and it meant that they didn't have to go for the mass audience immediately. So really, in my opinion, if damage control was on their minds at that point in time, and they knew that the Rift was going to be substantially more expensive, that could have been a good time to start briefing fans of the Oculus Rift that it's going to cost a little bit more than the $350 ballpark that they kept repeating up until recently. Now, I've noticed that the microphone's popping a bit, and I've left my pop guard somewhere, so I'm going to move the microphone away, so I might go quiet, but hopefully there'll be less popping, so sorry about that. Now, all said and done, for what you're paying, you are actually getting a really good device. There's two designed for VR screens that are high refresh rate screens, specifically configured for VR, in an enclosure that's specifically designed around comfort and addresses the issues that were discovered with the DK1 and DK2, with years of R&D going into the basic functionality, the usability. You're getting the high or moderately high quality headphones, a microphone, the tracking camera, the little controller. I'm not sure what that's about. Maybe that's not that exciting, but we'll find out more about that. But basically, the point I'm getting at, for the money, you're getting a really good package. And that's not including the software side. You are getting 2 free games with it. I'm not sure about Lucky's Tale personally, but Valkyrie looks pretty decent. And the Oculus Store, I'm sure there'll be other things thrown in there. And it's more just a case of it being a device that will plug in and work. And that really is very important when it comes to VR. Probably more important than the actual raw fidelity of the screen is just it working without issue. That can't be stated clear enough, and I'm pretty sure that's something that Oculus will have nailed. Now, I am partly justifying the price of this because I have put my money down for one, and I'm just going to bend over and take it. But being trying to be honest. Am I being honest or am I being self-deluded? It's hard to tell at times, but I genuinely do think the device isn't bad value for money when you look at what you're getting. Going back to the negative side, the negative me, my worry is that now this is an exclusive device, or a sort of targeted a more exclusive, or basically targeted at people that have money to burn audience. It's going to go to a lot smaller audience. There's going to be far less people with an Oculus Rift, and why that's worrying is that the Oculus is dependent on software. Now, Oculus themselves are developing a bunch of different titles, which again is somewhat bizarre. Some of the titles they have developed with the announcement of the Rock Band game, but that's another thing. We'll get into that again. That's just strange. We'll explain why. But they're developing some titles. There's a bunch of other developers doing stuff. But if there's not a giant install base, if you're an indie developer or you're a smaller developer, you're not going to bother risking it on that device. Now, maybe you can target sort of cardboard type devices or Gear VR that might have a wider adoption, and maybe if you're fortunate enough to have a PlayStation dev kit, which most indie developers don't, they can target PlayStation VR, or developers in general, not indie developers but large developers, will target PlayStation VR and also support the Oculus, which would make sense because they would get a wider install base. But on the pure PC side, ignoring the PlayStation VR, I am somewhat worried now with the price that it's being sold at, that we might see a lack of development or people committing to it. It's really going to be interesting to see what happens with the Vive and the price of that as well. So really, I just feel it's going to be a very slow progression into VR. But don't be mistaken, the VR ball is rolling. The snowball has started going down Mount Everest, and it's picking up snow and it's getting bigger. I say this because if you just look on eBay at the rubbish side of VR, the sort of Chinese knockoff and phone VR, even though that's terrible at the moment, that's gaining momentum and there's a basic interest there. And to be honest, if you've got an Android phone, or even if you're lucky enough to have a more premium phone, you probably would just pick up one of those devices, and people, marketers, video producers, musicians, artists are going to produce stuff for that. And as phones get better and as those devices get better, it probably won't be too long until they match degrees of quality that are found in the consumer version of the Rift and the Vive. Now, moving away from thinking about the gaming aspect of it, which for me, being someone that likes video games and driving simulators, is a very exciting aspect, but moving away from that to something that's perhaps even more exciting is VR as a professional device, and VR for applications, medical research, product development, and anything and everything that VR can develop. The Oculus Rift, at the price of selling it at, is an absurdly good device. I mean, if you've been following VR since the late 90s and moving forwards, the Rift is absurd in terms of what it gives. What the type of VR it gives for its price is unparalleled. It's unbelievable. But again, there is a big but in the form of the HTC Vive. If the Vive is released at anywhere close to the Oculus Rift's price, on the professional side, it arguably comes with a better method of tracking. It's still debatable, but I could see it edging towards the Vive over the Oculus Rift tracking. It comes as a complete package with the controllers and the headset. I think the Vive's probably a better device. It just depends on the price. Of course, the actual functionality of the headset might be worse, and it might turn out on the gaming side that the Oculus Rift is plug and play, but we don't know until these things are properly tested. But if the Vive is at a similar price to the Rift, which could happen, bearing in mind that the Rift, I believe, is manufactured in America now, whereas the Vive is going to be produced somewhere in Asia, it's possible, unlikely maybe, but it's possible the Vive could come in at a similar price to the Rift. And of course, with the Rift, we still have to add on the controller price because the controllers don't come with the device, which might not seem like a big thing, but if you've followed VR again, the proper tracked motion input is, in my opinion, as important as the headset. Well, once you've got the headset, but it doesn't have to, the tracking of the input doesn't have to be that good. It has to be better than a Wii remote, but as long as it's reasonable, the impact that has on the player or someone using a VR device is massive. It's such an immersive element, seeing your hands in the virtual world. It's just bizarre that the Oculus isn't shipping with that. I mean, in some ways, I think they should have just delayed the Oculus to release with those controllers. I'm sure they've got their own internal reasons for doing what they've done, but that's a really big negative for the Oculus Rift, not having the motion controllers, and then having the developers develop for an Xbox controller is borderline absurd. I can see why they've done it, but from the end user standpoint, and then for the moving forwards, people buying the Rift in a year's time, it's going to be bundled with the Xbox controller, or they're just going to move away from that and bundle it with the touch controllers. I don't know. It just seems really confused. And then to add to that confusion is on the software side, they announced the games like Rock Band. We're getting away from the professional aspect here. Gone off on a tangent. We'll go with it. Announcing Rock Band, which seems like a really game for a wider casual appeal. Same with the Lucky's Tale. They seem like more casual games, and really the price point they've gone in with, it's not a casual audience. They're going to be people that buy top-end graphics cards and have fast gaming PCs. Granted, a lot of people, I mean, I love Rock Band and I love platformers. I'm not against them. They could be fantastic games, but they're the type of game that generally appeals more to a wide audience that I wouldn't have thought would be interested in dropping $600 on a device to play those sort of games. They're happy to play those kind of games on a on a console or on a mobile phone or something. So it's all just really quite confused, I think. The main thing, though, we're just rather than this going on for ages, the main thing is from now it seems clear to me that Sony, surprisingly, I think the price they're going for is be about £350-400. So what's that, like $400? It looks like that. Maybe Sony will go mental. I don't know how they would sell theirs for that much, but Sony, I think what they're bringing to market looks as if it's closer to a sort of polished DK2 with a single screen, so they should be able to do it for cheaper than the Vive or the Oculus Rift. And Sony have their hand controllers already from the previous ones that they've developed. It seems to me that Sony, surprisingly, are going to be the mass market VR pusher. They're going to get the most units sold. It's going to be what the developers are going to want to target. As a result, on PC, we're just going to get the drips and drabs from the Sony side that aren't exclusive for Sony VR. Yeah, that's the surprise, I think, from this whole thing, is that I think Sony VR is going to be the big VR seller. It's going to be what people remember mostly, even though Oculus got the ball rolling with their Kickstarter. I just think that the Vive is going to be what really top end people are going to want to probably move towards, because it comes with the ones, and it depends on the price. But if they get it anywhere close, and commercially for applications and things, I could see them just going with the Vive. Partly because of the camera on it integrating the chaperone system and the diversity of what it appears to offer. We're not sure completely yet, but the Oculus Rift, in my opinion, just seems strangely placed. We'll see when it comes out. We'll see what it's like to use. We'll see how long it stays at its price. Maybe they'll lower the price. Maybe things will change. It's just a weird situation, and I can empathise with people. Empathise with people that are upset by the price or confused by it. I can empathise with people going, this is amazing, it's still good value for money. And I myself personally, I'm just looking forward to VR coming. There's going to be expensive devices, there's going to be cheap devices, there's going to be good devices, there's going to be bad devices. It's all up in the air. But I think either way, worst case, VR is happening, and that's the main thing to take away from this. So, probably got off topic there, went off on one, but I hope that was informative and useful. Probably wasn't, but make sure you subscribe and let me know what you think. It'll be interesting to have a conversation with you guys. We'll probably get into discuss and have a good conversation with some of the VR fans. Met some nice people when the VR launch party was going on, so we'll chat to some of them and see you in the next video we do, or this is closer to a podcast almost. But there you go. Thank you. Subscribe, like, and goodbye.